Hi, I'm Valerie Espinoza, your New Mexico Public Regulation Commissioner. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of our program. Today we have a very special guest who traveled all the way from Bernalillo County to be with us here in Santa Fe, and I really appreciate that. So I do want to welcome your retired police officer, Lou Golson.
I am.
Well, thank you again for being here and traveling to Santa Fe to talk to us today.
Absolutely, thank you.
I've had this program, I don't know how many years, we won't say because that'll date me, but it's been a very effective program to discuss the issues, and especially not only the issues, but those folks that are running for office, from the top seats to the bottom seats to, you know, any county, city, state government. People in Santa Fe and all around the state of New Mexico want to know who they're supporting, right?
Absolutely.
Regardless if you're a Democrat or a Republican. I was the former county clerk, and to me, that's irrelevant as long as you're seeking an office and you want to do the job.
And you want to do it correctly.
That's right.
And you're for the people.
So
and that's what I like to say. Party doesn't mean a lot. If you're an elected official, you're for the people.
It shouldn't, and especially if you're a county clerk like I was, and you know, those positions are to be fair and impartial. Now, it's been a pleasure just meeting you and talking to you for a few short moments. I know you're a candidate running for Bernalillo Bernalillo County Sheriff.
I am.
And I want to hear all about you and your agenda. I do know a little bit about you. And I was going to start by saying that I understand how difficult it is to be a police officer and how you have to respond and sometimes take this home with you, you know, some of the incidents and tragedies that happen throughout your day. But what I wanted to talk about is the tragedy that, you know, almost killed you. And if I can talk about it without getting emotional, because I know that you were shot by 4 times by a driver that you had pulled over. And just last night, I think I saw on the news, somebody was going to a home just to serve papers, and 2 or 3 people are dead also. So why would you want to go back into law enforcement?
I've been in public service virtually my entire life. I started out in the military as a civilian contractor with the Air Force Police. I went active duty for 4 years.
Air Force?
Yes.
I salute you and thank you for your service. My
Thank
sister
you.
was in the Air Force as well.
And when I ended my active duty with the Air Force, I got on with the Albuquerque Police Department and moved around, did a lot of things with them, and ended up retiring in 2004. And 3 months later, I came back to work because I wasn't done yet.
I know it did. I always wonder, what would it feel like to retire and then you probably were dying to get back to work, right?
I was. We had the return to work program back then. You just had to be gone 90 days. I was gone 92 and came back to work. And I served in several units within the department, and I had been back for a number of years. And the unit I was in was losing traction, losing people. There wasn't enough people to go around. So instead of staying in a job that went nowhere, I decided I wanted to do the DWI unit, which is probably the hardest unit because you get no sleep. You're up all hours of the night. And I could have stayed in a cushy job, but I decided I like to work. So I went to the DWI unit. And I was there for 4 years up until January 2015 when I made that single stop. I've made millions. I made that one stop where when I walked up onto the car, door opens, 5 shots were fired, 4 hit me.
Geez, did you have a bulletproof vest?
I did.
Or in those days they didn't have cell phones or bulletproof
No, oh yeah, we had cell phones, and the body armor, actually 2 bullets did hit the body armor, 2 didn't. Ended up with abdominal injuries, broken femur, broken radius, and a 10-day hospital stay.
And so what happened? I hope he's in jail.
He was. He pled to the state charges in 2017.
I would suspect he was a repeat.
He was. He had 13 previous felony arrests, 7 previous felony convictions. But he did plea. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. In March of this year, he went before the federal judge and pled to being an armed career criminal. She sentenced him to 17 years, but 15 was concurrent to his state sentence. So in effect, he only got an additional 2 years.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
That's a problem. The judicial system is light
It's
on
broken.
these. Yeah, I believe it. I see it.
Previously this year, they passed a bail restriction law where the Supreme Court has issued instructions to where even violent and repeat offenders are being released with no bond, and they're allowed to go and re-offend, re-victimize, which is horrible for my community, for everyone, because the entire state is now a victim and continues to be a victim until we keep violent and repeat offenders locked up. I mean, granted, not all of them are going to be convicted, but those that are, if they know they're going to get convicted or have a reasonable suspicion they're going to be convicted, they have nothing to lose. So they're going to go out and they're going to re-offend.
Naturally. It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, they have nothing to lose. So let's keep these people locked up.
And throw away the key.
That would be nice, but we do have certain limits for sentencing, which probably should be extended, but that's not in my job. My job is just to arrest them and hopefully present a very good case so they do get the maximum amount of time.
Good for you, and you're used to that. You obviously sound so very qualified that I can see why you'd like to serve in the capacity of sheriff.
I'm not done yet. This is a challenge. I love challenges, and I'm very good at what I do.
So let's go back to, you said you worked on the DWI unit. I served on the DWI task force when I was at the county, and I know the long hours you put in, because I decided one day that I wanted to go on a ride-along. Huge mistake. I mean, I had a meeting the next morning, and what happens? They arrested someone that was drunk and driving, and I watched the whole thing. I just kind of sat there, and then they put him in the car, and it kind of didn't smell very good. But
Lysol takes care of that.
Once that happened, you have to drive to the jail, and then that takes another, 2-3 hours to,
I had it down to about a 45-minute.
Goodness gracious.
From the time I got to, or from the time I left the scene to the time I was back into service was an average of 45 minutes, sometimes longer. But like I said, I'm good at what I do. And I found ways to improve my speed, but continue with my accuracy, because that was paramount, especially on a criminal case. I mean, DWI is such a huge issue here in New Mexico, and I don't want a case dismissed because of something I did wrong. So everything I did, all my I's were dotted, my T's were crossed, and I made sure that any evidence that was necessary was tagged in properly so that it didn't get lost.
So is it true, here's what we hear out, in the public, that if a police officer doesn't show up, let's say someone gets arrested for DWI, then it's dismissed?
It is.
What would you do to ensure that that doesn't happen?
I made sure that I always showed up for my appointments, and it's usually on your pretrial conference that it gets dismissed because you miss it. Well, being a DWI officer, we were required to be in several courtrooms at the same time, which they were all in the same building, so we could check in, but I would go physically to each one to make sure they saw me there, that I was there. It's the pretrial conferences that we kind of get tripped up on, because those times are just random. And if they're scheduled for when you're supposed to be in court, then you have to go to the DA. The DA has to go to the defense attorney to get the conference rescheduled. but by Constitution, you only have 6 months to bring it to trial.
Ah, so that's how you can also
Yes, if you go
fall
past
through
that
the
6
cracks.
months, then it's going to be dismissed and cannot be refiled.
Interesting.
Now, under that 6 months, depending on the judge's calendar, even if it does get dismissed for a missed conference, it can be refiled. Problem is, a lot of times it's not.
So what I wanted to ask you, law enforcement's typically always in the news, sometimes favorably, sometimes not. And, I find a lot of the latest news kind of disturbing, because as a police officer, you should be able to arrest someone without any kind of fear that, you're going to get sued at the end of the day, or, you did something wrong, or, you're going to treat these people with kid gloves. I see it all the time, and I know
Yes.
that I've talked to some law enforcement officers, and, what do you do about that?
I ignored that part of it. I mean,
You just do your job. And
do your job, do it right. You stay within the law, within your policies. Are you going to get sued? Possible.
how about the use of force? What is your thought on that policy?
If force is necessary, use it. If it's not, don't. That's a simplified version of it. But depending on the resistance you're getting from whoever you're trying to arrest or protect someone from, you have so many tools available to you today. You have your pepper spray, you have your tasers, you have your bean bags, you have your batons. You can use those in a myriad of situations. But then you also have situations where you have to go to deadly force. And as long as you're within policy, within the law, that shouldn't even be in your thoughts while you're protecting the public.
So is that why the body cameras are necessary? I know I've seen news coverage about that as well. And isn't that critical in terms of proof?
It's critical in terms of transparency. Back when I first started, police tactics and police training was held very, very secret. We didn't want the bad guys to know how we do things. Well, we're in the 21st century, folks. Everybody can Google police tactics, police training. It's not a secret anymore. Also, the public is more educated as to what police can and cannot do. And they're more curious. So this is putting it out there, whether it's good, it's bad, it's indifferent. Cameras are here. We're in the 21st century. We have the technology. You do have a use of force situation, whether it be non-lethal or lethal force. The public gets to see what we see, for the most part. You can't see everything on every camera, but you see what that officer or that deputy was up against, why they chose that particular use of force. And if it was all within policy, within the law, everybody will say, okay, I see that. Now, if it's not, they're going to see that too. And that has to be addressed, whether it's a training issue or a personnel issue. It still needs to be addressed. And the public still has the right to know because we serve them. It's not the other way around. As a public official, a police officer, a deputy, anyone in law enforcement, you're a public servant. And if the public has a question, they deserve an answer.
And speaking of public servants, tell me, your district is in Bernalillo County. Is it all of Bernalillo County? I know that
Yes.
Rio Rancho, Sandoval, town of Bernalillo, is that part of it? Can you talk a little bit about your district?
Bernalillo County, it's the majority of the city of Albuquerque. The outlying areas, you have Cedar Crest, you have Tejeras, you have the Isleta Pueblo, you have Laguna, parts of Laguna, Sandia, and all of the unincorporated areas just outside of Albuquerque.
Do you have the same sort of problems that we have had here in Santa Fe County with multi-jurisdiction and who's got the reins over sovereign? Do you have cross-jurisdictional?
Yes. To my knowledge, all but one pueblo has county commissions, so they can deal with native and non-native people on the reservation. Now, if they have felony crimes on the reservation, of course, it's going to be turned over to the FBI. But typically, the reservations will call the state police prior to calling the FBI if they have crimes. The sheriff's department comes in when they are not actually physically on the reservation and they're dealing with non-native people. Then the sheriff's department needs to get involved, because the sheriff is the head law enforcement official for any county. That's set by Constitution. So you're basically overseeing every police department plus the sheriff's department, court security within your county.
So I know we talked about the judicial system and the problems that it creates for the repeat offenders. What is your agenda to work on this crime problem? And
crime problem, every department has specialized units.
But how are you going to decrease crime?
You're going to decrease crime by targeting your highest crime areas first.
Where might those be?
Typically, within Bernalillo County, it's going to be within the city of Albuquerque. I'm going to have to work with the chief of police. Let's try to use our units combined, hit those areas. Let's decrease crime there, okay? Is that going to push them somewhere else? Probably so. So we have to project where they're going to go next and have somebody waiting on them. Whether it be auto theft, whether it be drug related, whether it be burglary, you get your specialized units, those that are just dedicated to those particular crimes, and you target these high crime areas. You educate the public, okay? Lock your doors. Don't leave packages in your cars that people can see. Your
purses, my goodness.
Purses, cell phones, tablets.
My friend's gone jogging twice near Sandia, took her purse out of the trunk. They pressed the button, broke a window, pressed it, popped the trunk, got it. And then she replaced everything, license, and a month later,
yes.
Same thing.
Right. And because they know that people are going to put that stuff in the trunk. Well, that's one issue that is becoming less of an issue, because the car manufacturers are only allowing those buttons to work when the key is turned.
Interesting.
Yes.
I didn't know. I guess I better buy a new car.
Right. Or you can have it reconfigured where it only works when it's just one wire. It goes from being hot all the time to only hot when the ignition is on. That's how to solve that part of it. But just teaching people crime prevention measures. Does your door have a deadbolt? What kind of deadbolt? Do you have windows that are securable or not? And a lot of times it's just, hey, plant cactus or rose bushes under your windows.
That's a good one.
Yes, and very effective, because bad guys will bypass yours and move to someone else, because they want the biggest bang for their buck. They want to get in, get out really quick. They don't want to get hurt if possible. So you educate people. Between the education and the selective enforcement, you can decrease crime. Can you get rid of it? Probably not. But you can decrease it. Okay, we can arrest hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bad guys. We can put them in jail. Then they go to court. Then they get out. So what I would prefer would be myself and the other 32 sheriffs to band together and go before the legislature and say, hey, the new stuff ain't working. Our most violent and our repeat offenders are being put back on the streets as soon as they're out of jail. Yeah, you give them your ankle monitor, but they cut it off. They go reoffend. We need to stop this.
And there's not only the repeat offenders, there's also the unsolved crimes. For instance, we had one here in Santa Fe. How does that happen, where you can go to somebody's house, they hear you outside at 3 in the morning, and there's a confrontation, and you get shot and can't find the guy? How is it that, is that anything within your purview or reach that you can help,
you
discover
find,
who the criminal is, and
well, usually if it happened many years ago, before the advent of the DNA evidence,
right.
There's always that possibility. Unfortunately, right now, most of the crime labs are so backlogged with current and your cold cases. You have to try to fit it in. But if you get detectives that are just really good at what they do,
That's
how
they happens.
Those massive puzzles. They look at those cases, they find the evidence that was either overlooked or has been put off, and try to get it put to the forefront.
So what would you do to train your staff?
I would send them to every school I possibly could. A lot of it is just natural abilities, and you identify those people with those natural abilities. And if they're interested in doing something like that, you put them there. You get them there. You give them the additional training. You give them the additional resources. You lobby the legislature for money for specific things. There's grants. There's federal grants out there that are for anything from enforcing traffic laws to solving cold cases. You have someone in there, and that's their forte, is getting grants. And you have them there, and that's what they do. They get you the money to solve these crimes. And unfortunately, that's what it's about, is having the money to get the testing done, to find out who this DNA belongs to, whose fingerprint is this. Is it the victim? Is it the offender? If it's the offender, where is he or she? Is he still alive? Is he in prison somewhere? Or is he dead? We need to know these things. And having a cold case unit is a prime example of that. Virtually every department in the country, major department, has a cold case unit, because there are those cases that are out there that people need to know. And if it's within your jurisdiction, great, it's all yours. Run with it. Now, if your people find something out about something in another jurisdiction, work with them. You have to have a great working relationship with the city, with the state, with the federal government, because one department on its own is going to do absolutely nothing.
Especially your mayor. I think you have a new mayor. Is he going to look out for more police officers? Is that the plan? Is that what your plan is?
Yes. The sheriff's department was fully staffed up until just a few months ago. They've been losing deputies quite frequently to the police department.
Sure, that happens. Yeah, that happens here.
Issues.
Our guys go to your shop
exactly.
because and the cost of living here is pretty high.
It is, and it's lower in Albuquerque, or you don't have to live within the city limits of Albuquerque. You can move into the unincorporated areas or somewhere in the metro area, like Rio Rancho or Bernalillo, where the cost of living is a little bit less.
So if you had 5 minutes or less to talk about, your plan, you're a candidate for Bernalillo County Sheriff, what would your plan be, and what differentiates you from your opponent? What would you use that opportunity to tell the public what you're going to do, your plan? I know real quick, let me just say one thing, that most neighborhoods would love to see an increase in police patrols in their neighborhood. I know I would.
That's part of community policing. That's what was developed naturally. Somebody just back in the 80s put a buzzword to it. When I was back as a patrol officer, that's what I would do, even on a graveyard, especially on the weekends when people were out.
Yeah.
You'd see people out in their yard. Stop and talk to them.
That's nice. Yeah, that's assurance that, you're there.
We're there.
You're
we're
present.
approachable. We're not this person wrapped in this metal and glass vehicle that you can't talk to.
Our neighborhood just got hit, and all they did was, destroy the vehicles. Well, I leave my vehicle unlocked. That was real smart, right? So they kind of like ransacked it and couldn't find
Yes.
much, but
that's a double-edged sword. Leave your vehicle unlocked so they don't break your window.
that was a good one. I did the right thing.
Yeah, but they're going to go inside. They're going to tear up everything. Looking for something.
They did.
So you're
right.
the less of two evils. Personally, I would prefer locking my car. Make it someone who's going to be walking around looking for a car that's open will bypass mine because it's locked.
Make it harder.
Make it harder. Locks are only for honest people anyway. If they really want in your car or in your house, they're going to get in there.
So you seem very action oriented, like educating. I was at Lowe's the other day, and I had my purse in the basket, and the guy tells me, I'm a retired cop, and you shouldn't leave your purse there while you put your things in the car. You should put your purse in the car first. So you seem to be that kind of person. You
I
think first.
I like to think things through. A lot of times you have to make a decision on the fly. And so far, I've been making great decisions on the fly.
Oh, and let's go back to that, because we've got to, tell the audience what your agenda is and what differentiates you from your opponent before we run out of time. This has been very interesting for me. I am being very selfish here, but this is, asking you all these questions. But go right ahead.
All right. Well, I'm Lou Golson. I am a candidate for Bernalillo County Sheriff. Currently, my opponent is very dead set against having cameras or video of any kind. I'm all for them. It's not a crime issue. It's not a protection issue. It's a transparency issue because the citizens I serve deserve to know. I want to do things correctly. I don't want any air of suspicion, corruption, nepotism. None of that is going to be in my administration. Yes, I do have a son with the department, and anything good or bad will not even reach my desk. It'll be handled prior to getting to me. Crime has to be reduced. There has to be a relationship between the sheriff's department, the police department, the courts, the DA's office, and even the community outreach programs to help rehabilitate those that are rehabilitatable. Those that are not need to stay in jail or locked up somewhere, not to victimize my community. That's my issues, is serving the community, being transparent, and making it a safe place for people to live. And in short, I really ask for your support and look forward to you serving you as a community.
Do you have a website?
I do. It's Lou Golson, spelled out, Lougolson, for sheriff, FORSHERIFF.com.
And I'm curious, what would you do different than things are being done now?
Currently, the Sheriff's Department is not transparent. They're not willing to provide IPRA information, which is the Inspection of Public Records Act. They do not fulfill any of them. They're using excuses which don't apply to the situations. And my understanding of the IPRA is if it will not affect an ongoing investigation and does not involve a minor victim, you're required by law to provide it to whether it's a public or to the media. He's not doing that. He is not releasing anything. And my stance is, if you have it, put it out there, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. If it's good, everybody's going to understand. If it's indifferent, everybody will look at it and go, nobody can tell. And if it's bad, they need to know that too. You can't be afraid to put bad stuff out. Do I have a training issue? Let's address it now. Let's fix it.
I think you mentioned too that your son was working at the department. That's great. It's like father like son. I don't see a problem with that. But anyhow, we have actually run out of time, and I wanted to just thank you for your interview. It's been very interesting learning about you and learning about your plans and your policies that you want to implement. And so thank you again for being here. I wish you luck. We invite this program and opponents to anyone. It's open to anyone. And so please feel free to come back.
Yeah.
And
thank you for having me.
should you win, you're always welcome to come back to Santa Fe as well.
Absolutely.
So good luck to you, and I want to thank you for watching. Give me a call if you'd like to appear on this program at 827-4533. Thank you.